Story time. Taking malaria immunization-type medication in 2012 in Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia. Today is Wednesday, 8 October 2025, and here I, Tanis Coralee of Seattle, reflect on taking malaria immunization-type medication in 2012 when in country in Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia, during my time studying abroad at Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. 6-month student visa, January 2012 to June 2012. Yes, so welcome to this weekend Wednesday. A Wednesday I treat like a weekend day, and it's a Wednesday, 8 October 2025. And for my opening story time today, I'm talking about taking malaria immunization type medication. And so this was back, I don't know if/how research around malaria immunization has progressed. And immunization is something that makes a person immune. And malaria, so I had a physical before I went for like good health and figuring out the process for all this. And malaria is one that so I've talked about the tuberculosis, I've talked about the yellow fever and some of the stuff for my going to Africa. And malaria was one that was like, so tuberculosis testing was required before and after I like before I left and when I returned and like after I returned. Malaria was one that was similar to yellow fever in the sense of I had to have a malaria immunization type medication, and they might have even said immunization type because it was like there isn't quite a cure for it unless like you're there and then you take immunization type medication. So it was like it's like immunization, but it's really different. And like in the sense of like you have to use it at the time, whereas like a lot of immunizations are applied even if the person never encounters the virus. Malaria was a bit different of a virus. And so I had to have malaria, and they were like, you had, depending on what form of immunization you take, there are different like places to go to get the immunization. And so I went and I had to have it before I went to Africa, versus with yellow fever, it was when I was traveling into a yellow fever zone. If I did that, then I needed that immunization, which I got in South Africa itself. However, to travel to Africa, per my setup, I was required to get malaria immunization type medication in advance. And for me, I went with the medication. So that means it was an oral immunization. There were other forms of malaria immunization. However, I went with, I think, the oral medication was a recommended, and it allowed me to, they were like, you can take it for the duration. However, like, it was a bit more at my discretion. So it was one where it was required. However, the like using of it on oneself was a bit individual. Like I did use it, but I didn't use it my entire time when I was in South Africa, and I had it living there. Some people did, and the reason I didn't take it for the duration of my stay was, one, there were no mosquitoes. Okay. 2, like where I was living. 2, I had the oral medication type, and some people were having horrible times with sleep and nightmares, and I was like, I'm already having enough with the nightmares territory, but not like just you know, adjusting. I was like, I try to get good sleep. And so I was just kind of like, I'll save that for a place where there are like mosquitoes, you know, mosquitoes. So in Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Zambia, I did take this malaria immunization type medication, and it was, it did disrupt my sleeping a little. So I did stop taking it when I left those countries. However, I could, it was like, it could be like, I was required to have it and could think of it as optional unless in a really high risk area. And so that was like the high risk area. And I would say when I was there, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Zambia, I actually got bit by a tsetse fly, which is a carrier of sleeping sickness, and it oozed orange. And I was like, it was a reminder And I didn't get sleeping sickness, and that's one that has no immunization, or I did when I was there. And so I was just kind of like, while malaria is bad, it's a reminder it's not as bad as it gets. And if an immunization exists for something, it's not as bad as it gets. So that's a story time. Taking malaria immunization type medication in 2012 in Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia.